I call Todd Barclay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very, very robust act to follow there. Well done, Mr. Bailey. I'd just like to talk about in support of the Prime Minister's statement, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to firstly start off and talk about a remark made by Mr. Shearer just in regards to the Labor Party's free tertiary education policy. And probably fair to say I'm probably the closest to that space of policy in this House, Mr. Speaker. I've actually just recently paid off my student loan. But one of the things that I think that is important to remember, the government already effectively carries the cost for about 75% of student loan payments. And when you look at it in that context, it's 25% of that loan that's still being paid for by the student is still quite considerable as part of their salary. But actually, Mr. Speaker, the cost of appreciating that is considerable as well. I don't think, not much in life that you get for free, but if you do receive something for free, many people do appreciate it. But if you're receiving a free education, the ability or the incentive for you to actually work hard and study and try to get the best results that you can are not there if there's not a cost to you and there's not an incentive to complete your education, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell you about that firsthand. But I think that what the government's doing with regard to tertiary education already is a very positive move. We're already incentivising students enough to study, but not making it unaffordable for them to do so. If you come from a family, or if you are in a position where you can't afford to pay for accommodation or some other form of study through course-related there are payments through the accommodation supplements and through course-related costs, and there are subsidies there for people to assist them into education, Mr. Speaker. Just regarding the Prime Minister's statement, New Zealand is in good shape, and I say that with strong confidence, representing a large rural electorate at the bottom of the South Island. That progress is actually due to the hard work and positive attitude of New Zealanders, but it's also because of the stability and cohesion and the confidence that comes from more than 7 years of strong and stable government under John Key's leadership, Mr. Speaker. We've got a busy agenda in 2016, carrying on from 7 years of hard work and consistent policy development. We're pressing on with social housing reforms to do a better job for our tenants. Many residents in Invercargill will hopefully benefit from that as those discussions progress over the coming years. And I'm sure if my colleague Sarah Dowie was here herself, she would be remarking on that. We're also maintaining a strong focus on law and order. And to that end, I want to compliment and acknowledge the hard work of police officers in my electorate, Mr. Speaker. Particularly, I want to name 3 people who are the area commanders who are responsible for the Queenstown Lakes area, the Clutha area, and a large part of the Southern area. And they are Alistair Dickey, Richard McPhail, and Olaf Jensen, Mr. Speaker. And I also want to acknowledge the hard work of the staff and the manager of the Otago Correctional Facility, Jack Harrison. It's an important part of our electorate. It's Milton's largest employer. It's created opportunities for that town, for employment and for other staff to move on. And the reason why I mention those areas is because they're often thankless jobs, but there are a lot of people that go out every day and do protect and serve our constituents right across the country, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to touch a little bit on some of the things that we're doing. In New Zealand we have to focus on the things that we can control. We're a small island nation at the bottom of the world. Things that we can control are our own competitiveness and our economic performance. And we're also well placed to meet external challenges insofar as we can as well. Otago and Southland, as I've already mentioned, Mr. Speaker, are primary industry-driven communities, and as well we've got Queenstown, Catlins and Milford Sound that are largely driven by tourism. We can't forget that New Zealand is performing very well compared to most countries in these areas. Just in terms of tourism, last year there were over 100,000 visitors travelled to the Catlins. There were over 600,000 visitors that travelled to Milford Sound. That's back up near pre-GFC numbers. And Queenstown was #1 for international visitor spend with 14% market share of international expenditure, Mr. Speaker. So these parts of the economy are doing very well. We had the Southern Field Days a couple of weeks ago where we had 13 MPs come down, including the Prime Minister, Primary Industries Minister Nathan Guy, Deputy Prime Minister Bill English. And that's provided a lot of support for our farmers down there, and I just want to acknowledge that in closing, while I have no hesitation in fully commending the Prime Minister's speech and supporting it. Thank you.